Hey, what's up guys, it's the War Gamer bringing guys another video. Today I'll be discussing the Sand War, a large multinational war that occurred in the Stoneworks Minecraft server. So before we start this video, let me just quickly say, if you want to join or if you are interested, check the description for the IP address. Also, I would also like to thank the wiki creator Pablo Orso for making this wiki page. I've also added some of my own stuff that I've researched on by myself. Also guys, if you do enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and leave a like. It definitely supports my channel and I would definitely appreciate it. So without further ado, let's go on to the video. Now, as I just said before, the Sand War, which is also known as the Surf Conflict, was a large multinational war between the Zamots Union and the USSE Protectorate of Marconis in the region of Orthocan on Eltham. The war's title, the Sand War, originates from the allegations created by the People's Republic of Marconis, which accused the Zamots Union of partaking in illegal sand mining, and also the fact that the border dispute, which was the primary catalyst for the multi-nation conflict, was located in the sandy deserts of Eltham. The Sand War began on November 6, 2021, and would end on November 27, 2021, when the USSE National Assembly passed a vote for peace. This makes the Sand War one of the longest wars in Stoneworks history, lasting exactly 3 weeks long. The roots of the conflict stretch back into late October of 2021, when the People's Republic of Marconis became an official protectorate of the United Socialist States of Eltham. As a protectorate, Marconis held the rights to free, independent governance and had the ability to have their own foreign relations and elected leaders, with the exception that they shall not jeopardize the integrity of the United Socialist States of Eltham's political interests in a fundamental or an intentional way. Around this time, the Zamots Union created a military alliance with the USSE called the Treaty of Two Unions, which stated, quote, "Signing nations will agree to not begin or formally assist in any war or military conflict against the other nation. The only reason a nation may act against the other signing nation is out of defense or natural obligation." End quote. The original undisputed borders in the region before the annexation of the Avarian Wolfswood by the Pale, also seen in the original, very small island borders of Marconis, which had newly become a protectorate of the USSE. The Pale had integrated the Avarian colonies of Wolfswood into their nation on October 29, 2021. This began the beginning of a territorial dispute, where the Zamots Union had a claim to the desert biome in the region, which as a result of Eltham's map borders resulted in the Pale unintentionally taking claim of Zamots Union claimed territory. The regional borders after the annexation of Avarian Wolfswood by the Pale. You can see the first issue arise in the Pale unintentionally made claim to the desert biome owned by the Zamots Union. On October 31st, 2021, Marconis purchased land from the Pale, which drastically expanded upon the territorial reaches of the island micronation and gave them swatches of territory on the mainland bordering the Zamots Union province of Fuenia. They, however, would inherit the border problems accidentally created by the Pale, and it was very quickly brought to attention that the Pale, and now by extension Marconis, had claimed land by Zamots Union in the desert biome, including the small Zamots Union city settlement of Surf. The borders in the region after the Pale sold land to Marconis, including the desert biome which they didn't own. This resulted in Marconis being of the belief that they had owned the desert biome, as the Pale did not inform them of the proper border with the Zamots Union. Marconis had thought that they had rightfully owned the land, as they had paid for it, but after realizations of wrongdoing on behalf of the three nations involved in regards to the land transaction, and not figuring this out sooner, all the nations attempt to buy it for peace. Initial agreements resulted in a more defined border whereby the desert biome would be entirely under the control of the Zamots Union. Yet Marconis began to incorrectly interpret the border as lying directly east of Surf. This left the land still in a gray area in terms of control, and claim as Marconis claimed the border was several chunks further west than the border clearly defined by Zamots and Avaria, the nation that preceded the Pale, in earlier regional maps and agreements. Later, a purported Marcosian border surveyor was looking at the area and determining where to build a wall using the incorrect claimed border of everything east of Surf belonging to Marconis, when they were killed by a Zamotian resident of Surf. While Zamots claimed the surveyor had attacked first and was wearing armor, Marconis claimed that the surveyor was attacked first and was not wearing armor. This situation quickly escalated as a couple of hours later, Marconis marched into Zamots with their leader, Ex-Potatoes, and two soldiers and declared a kill on sight, or KOS, on the citizens of the town of Surf, as revenge for the allegedly unprovoked attack on their survey. This resulted in the citizens of Surf calling in one of the triumvirs of the Zamots Union, King Okomi I, to investigate. Upon arrival, he was allegedly attacked by the Marconian forces and fought alongside the citizens of Surf, killing ex-Potatoes and the two soldiers. Zamots reports that ex-Potatoes later returned and attacked again alone and took off his armor during the fight, resulting in a quick death. After the citizens of Surf and King Akami I defeated the Marcosian force, they reported this incident to the USSE and the Zamots Council. On top of this all, Marconis claimed that Zamotians had begun mining sand in their territory, which opted the name the Sand War, as both a play on the dispute over the desert and allegedly sand destruction. Tensions heated up incredibly quickly as minor conflicts quickly spread into heated, toxic arguments. Despite Marconis' status as a protectorate of the USSE and failures from both sides to inform all involved parties extensively of the situation, the Zamots Union agreed to declare war on Marconis on November 6, 2021, which according to the USSE violated the Treaty of Two Unions between the United Socialist States of Eltham and the Zamots Union, which has stated that neither side shall declare war or have aggressions toward one another. The Zamots Union claimed that acted in self-defense for the citizens of Surf, and therefore did not violate the treaty, and that Marconis had in fact violated the Treaty of the United Front by declaring a kill-on-sight order against civilians on Surf. This was the first declaration of war, which came from the Zamots Union and was against Marconis. Quote, "The Zamots Union declares war on Marconis. It's been several days of bickering on both sides, days of disputes and attacks. Most of the world, even the countries involved, hardly understood what was going on. Today, however, the Zamots Union had a moment of clarity. After a peace agreement was settled between the Zamots Union and Marconis over a border dispute at the Pale, the agreement was violated today. Marconis claimed that the border was right next to the Zamotian town of Surf, and that a portion of the desert was theirs. They then stated that we destroyed their desert through an excavation site in the disputed territory, which has existed before the Zamotian citizens even settled in the area. They said that we attacked a Marconian surveyor, which had dealt the first blow. They stated that we killed him and was not wearing armor, when he had only provoked us, but took off his armor shortly after before dying. Lie after lie after lie. It hadn't stopped and likely won't, unless we take action on behalf of the terrorized people of the Surf, whom had a KOS kill-on-sight order issued upon them by Marconian leadership. The Zamots Union will no longer tolerate their lies. The Zamots Union has declared war on Marconis. If you wish to see additional proof or have any questions, feel free to DM me. Thank you and have a good day." End quote. Immediately after the announcement of war from Zamots, the USSE General Secretary Chelovek Cerebra attempted to bid for both powers to come to a peace agreement and begin negotiations. While negotiations did begin, they were largely futile, as enraged arguments made up most of the time, and testimony from the citizens of Surf and Marconis contradicted each other constantly. Eventually, the Zamots representatives agreed to terms which including a fixed border and Marconis paying $150,000, but the long-awaited negotiations were vetoed by a Zamotian Trimavir. After vetoing the original negotiations between the USSE and Zamots, the people of Surf drafted another set of more through demands called the Akami Surf demands. The Akami terms including number 1, Marconis leaves the League of Firkon. Number 2, ex-Potatoes is replaced by Donutaro. Number 3, Marconis issues a formal apology to the people of Surf. Number 4, Marconis pays $150,000 in war reparations. Number 5, should Marconis attack Zamots again, they will lose their protectorate status under the USSE. Number 6, the USSE will take over Marconis' right to establish diplomatic relations with other countries and to conduct foreign policy, as long as Marconis is under the USSE as a protectorate. Number 7, Marconis must respect and previously agreed upon borders. And the last one, number 8, should Marconis violate any terms of this treaty, they will lose their protectorate status under the USSE. After the vetoing of the USSE's proposed peace treaty by Zamots, the National Assembly of the United Socialist States of Eltham agreed to open a state of war against the Zamots Union for the declaration of war against the USSE protectorate and their alleged violation of the Treaty of Two Unions. Allies of both nations were quick to respond to the declaration of war. The USSE and Marconis received international support from Rodenbro, Nova Ascaria, Valderich, The Pale, Libram, Paloma, Tovarisha, the Commonwealth, Vulpenia, etc. Notably, the alliance that Marconis is a part of, the League of Firkon, voted overwhelmingly against joint military support for Marconis, but still allowed a corps of volunteers to participate that included the Secretary General himself. On the other hand, the Zamots Union received no formal international declarations of support, but the Eltham Entente nations, including Aristios, are believed to have had offered volunteer support to Zamots, but because of pre-existing treaties with the USSE, the Eltham Entente had not formally joined in the war effort. The opposing sides of the Sand War The USSC is depicted in bright red, with its formal allies in the war in light red and unofficial allies who provided volunteers in grayish red. The Zamost Union is shown in bright blue, with its former allies in the war in light blue, and unofficial allies who provided volunteers in grayish blue. Original map by Captain Westeros. Prior to the first battle of the war, a week existed where opposing parties began rapidly arming their militaries, militarizing, building fortifications, sending propaganda, and more. The first battle had been set for November 13th, but it was eventually delayed to the 20th, which meant the week was actually 2 weeks in length. This meant that the duration that the nations were at war with one another made this conflict one of the longest wars in Eldamite history. Over the course of the pre-battle week, both nations created a massive amount of propaganda and made attempts to smear the opposition in order to establish moral order. Standard propaganda from the Zamost Union against the USSC and Merconis. A propaganda poster from the USSC depicting the Zamost Union as funneling money into war and destruction. On November 11th, propaganda had been posted depicting the United Socialist States of Eldheim as Adolf Hitler and Merconis as a racist Japanese caricature, which resulted in propaganda being taken down to prevent breaking of the rules. This resulted in outrage from members of the USSC and certain citizens of Zamost Union. The National Front of Zamost, also known as the NFC, is a political party created by Mayor of Surf, Badibedo, on November 10, 2021. The platform of the political party called for expansionism, extreme anti-socialism, ultra-nationalism, and a more centralized government. Upon the discovery of the political party, it was heavily criticized by the USSC and was called a fascist political party for what it endorsed. The name of the political party was eventually changed as per request of the Serb administrators. Spying and espionage was actually quite common during the week before the war. Both nations at various points claimed that the opposing side was utilizing spies. It is estimated at the time of this article being written that at least 3 people have been arrested in the USSC on accusations of espionage or treason. The USSC, however, did not make any official statement on the matters. In the Zamost Union, government officials are believed to have suspected that the USSC was using spies. Both sides of the conflict quickly began to prepare for war. The USSC would start constructing a large fort directly outside of Oblitus Auris named Fort Merconis, where the first battle was to be held. This fort was surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands, of berry bushes and a moat of lava. The USSC would extensively attempt to make peace with the Zamost Union after the pre-battle week despite initial failures, all of which would ultimately approach failure as well. Arguments against Okomi Surf demands constantly made, but ultimately the Zamost Union refused to budge and continued war. On November 13, 2021, a Similami citizen and independent journalist by the name Bijon began extensively interviewing both sides of the conflict and attempting to gain information behind what really happened at Surf. Eventually, he would release a document aptly named The Merconis and Zamost Conflict, where he intended to expose criminal activity and organized mischief that had led to the crisis. After the release of Bijon Gate, the USSC made another proposition for peace, which was the closest to actually achieving it. This included many of the original first demands such as reparations, a defined border, etc., but now included a clause that the USSC would lead a trial against ex-potatoes for his crime with a neutral Iraqi judge and the prosecution being led by Zamostians of their choosing. This was the most popular of the later peace attempts. However, because of the objection of a few high government officials, this would not pass, which meant that war was now inevitable. The war was originally set to begin at 1 p.m. EST on November 20th, 2021, but shortly before the battle was intended to begin, the server began experiencing extreme DDoS attacks which shut down the server. Zamotian troops waiting at Fort Jericho for the war to begin, and several troops fighting for the USSC fighting in the middle of Fort Merconis for the war to begin. The battle was postponed to 2 p.m. EST, but yet again, because of DDoS attacks, was forced to be postponed to 3 p.m. EST. Despite the fact that the DDoS attacks kept on continually happening, the war was never changed from 3 p.m. EST. While many USSC government officials and even some Zamostians proposed moving it to another date, many decided against this as the first battle had already been postponed 2 weeks when the war was declared. The battle was said to occur at Fort Merconis, which was on the North Mercosian mainland, directly southwest of Oblitus Auris. It featured 3 towers, including 2 large ones known as the first tower and the second tower, respectively, going north to south. It was surrounded by a moat of lava, gargantuan amount of sweetberry bushes intended to slow down enemy advances. At 3 p.m. EST, once the war had begun with the plugin, Zamotians began quickly marching north from Fort Drigo. They went onto the roads outside Oblitus Auris and went east towards Fort Marconus. Zemotian soldiers running down a road towards Fort Marconus after leaving Fort Drigo. Depiction of battlegrounds from the Eltam Dynamap. Once the Zemotians began running down the road to Fort Marconus, they were met with a barrage. The Zemotians made their way into a tiny tower on the northeastern edge of Fort Marconus and crossed through scaffolding bridges. At around 3:09 p.m., the Zemotians advanced to the top of Fort Marconus, where the first major melee fighting occurred. Around 2,000 soldiers began fighting ferociously. At this point, dozens of wolves, likely numbering over 100, were sent after Zemotians to further slow down their advance, but were almost immediately slaughtered, the Zemotian soldiers running into the two little towers of Fort Marconus. Grainy footage from a live stream showing the chaotic melee fight. After around 3 minutes of fighting, at around 3:11 p.m., USSC and Allied troops began to move into the so-called First Tower. Zemotians followed them but remained confined to the lower levels and stairwells. At around 3:25 p.m., troops from the Pale were pushed out of the lower battlements, severely diminishing the number of those protecting the first tower as TNT began to be blown up in the lower sections of the first tower. Video clips showing the first leg spikes and server crashes throughout the battle.
Could I help you, Electric?
No. Don't get
You
yourself
have
killed.
armor, Electric.
Oh, wait. There's a sniper up there.
I got away.
Okay, the whole
Jeez,
game
it's
fucking
lagging.
lagged. Everything froze.
Yeah.
At this time, the kill count began to explode massively as people were constantly spawn killed at the top floor of the first tower, and people could only flee by jumping out battlements and arrow slits. Video clip showing USSC and Allied troops in the second tower just before Zemotian soldiers entering the tower from the top using crimson wine.
Magikarp, what are your orders?
Just.
Wait, there's
go
a
to strong
janitor
gate for
fucking
now.
rising here! Yo!
Wha-
The fort!
Okay,
There's the fucking
let's go up,
janitor
let's go.
going with that floating
Yeah.
potion.
Shortly after, at around 3:29 p.m., the rest of the USSC soldiers began to rush into the top floor of the first tower to fight off the advancing Zemotians after they noticed the massacre happening. Some people, such as X-Potatoes, intentionally threw themselves at the Zemotians while unarmored and were killed over 20 times, adding to the kill count. The first tower of Fort Marconus towards the end of the battle, when the vast majority of the USSC and Allied troops had fled or died. At around 3:30 p.m. EST, the battle was decisively lost, as virtually every single USSC soldier had either now fled or lost their stuff. The call to surrender in its entirety would be given around this time by General Secretary Chelovek, after he saw that the fort had been lost and they had lost all of their defensive positioning and good gear. Oh yeah, and in case you didn't understand what the hell just happened during the war, let me just quickly show you. As in this animation that I quickly made, the blue is Zemotian and the yellow is Marconus, and this is showing the progress made by Zemotian as they quickly invade into Marconus. The first attempt to achieve peace after the war was the Kaz-Kayan Agreement. It was created shortly after the loss of the Battle of Oblitus Auris with the intention to end the war. It elaborated on the previous Akomisarf demands after a long 4 days of desperately trying to achieve peace after the battle. Negotiations began to quickly break down as people such as X-Roy's Renango O left group chats and talks after feeling consistently ignored for over a month. This also began a process where the Zemotian began to ignore messages from the USSC regarding the achieving of peace. At this time, people from Marconus began to flee to Rathnir, fearing that their government would be taken over by Zemot or Donatar. After a surplus of indecisiveness regarding what to do after the war, the USSC negotiated the sale of Marconus on November 23rd to the nation of Uraka in exchange for money to make up the USSC losses in the war. This resulted in the signing of the Central Eltam Peace Treaty, which was signed by Prime Minister and Council of Ministers in Marconus. This officially meant that Marconus would be absorbed into Uraka as a vassal state with their own local government, meaning the land had now gone from USSC hands to Urakan ones. And that is the end of this video, actually. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, first of all. I can't believe you guys have actually sticked around and to see the end of this video. I'm very happy for that, and I definitely recommend that you guys, like, join the server. It's so fun. It's so much fun. You know, like especially if you like role playing or like PvP or like building, it's like a server for all of this kind of stuff. You know, please subscribe, leave a like, it's free, and you can easily unsubscribe later. And also, it definitely supports my channel, as I said before. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video on the Sand War, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace out and goodbye.